All right, recording is rolling. It's Thursday, February 24. Showed you guys SAT student locations, just got that info today. Of course, you guys got SAT in a few days. Well, most of you guys do. So we're going to do Kahoot on section 4. So switch my screen over. Screen to share. All right, guys ready to go? So if you're hopping in a minute late, that 7-digit PIN will be bottom of the screen. And here we go. Okay, now this one's too small, but I'll take you guys through this. So the story is that somebody's, those are all distance versus time graphs, and which one corresponds to the story? You're running, then you take a break for a while, and then you continue running, but at a slower pace. Right, so distance versus time graphs. You guys see this option C? So you're running at some rate, the slope of this is the speed, then you take a break for a while, so you're not moving, right? And then you run at a slower speed. Okay, so that's that one. Oh, okay. So you guys get there. Most of these problems you can read, just not a couple of these. Go ahead, solve that one. All right, hope you guys got that. So flip the screen over and show you guys why that answer was. You guys should have gotten that. So if you missed that, then say real close attention here, because there was only like one thing involved, and it was just a distribution of a negative sign. Right? So it's a something minus something else. Okay. I'm going to take this negative and distribute it into each of these three pieces. Right? So wouldn't it be now if you're I did skip a step here from the sub to the answer, but you can here was 3y squared minus negative. It's not like a plus. So plus 5y squared, would that bring you to 8y squared, right? And then now the 3y, this is the only y term. So I got minus 3y, so that minus 3y. Okay. Then -2 minus a -6. Isn't that like -2 plus 6? So that brings you to plus 4. Okay. So that's the answer. Okay. Flip back over. Reports. All right, so this one says graph shows temperature of different blocks as a function of time. Both blocks lose heat at a constant rate, the different rates. Block B started at a lower initial temperature. Okay. Block A took 8 minutes to cool to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and block B took 12 minutes to cool to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. According to the graph, what was the difference in degrees Fahrenheit between the initial temperatures of block A and block B? So this vertical axis is scaled 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay. So what was the difference in initial temperatures? I see it'd be this 40 minus this 25, right? What's that 40 minus that 25? Difference in the initial temperatures. Yeah, it'd be 15, right? So it's a question interpretation you have to know to look for like the intercepts of those graphs and then take the difference in the intercepts, right? So Okay, we've got different service providers. The table summarizes a census of 2,800 households in a small community. Based on the table, how many households receive their internet service from either corporate cable or global networks? Either corporate cable or global networks. Ooh, one winner. Switch over. Right. Now, if you looked at the rows of that table, right, so there are a bunch of different service providers, okay, but the two that were specified were 47% and 17%. Now, it said how many customers were either one or the other, so you can combine those two. Like as a Venn diagram, that's called the union, right? Well, okay, I mean, they're separate, they're independent anyway, but you can add them up, right? So one or the other. Okay, and then, no, that would be the percentage of people, 47%, 17%, I read those as decimals. Okay. And remember, there were 2,800 people who were surveyed. So it'd be that proportion of all those people. So if you multiply that by that, you get 1,792 people. Okay. Jules, getting the points. Office supply vendor delivers paint ink to companies, charges a subscription fee of $230 for its services, plus X dollars for each carton of ink. If a company paid a total of $13.64 and bought 18 cartons of ink, but the $13.64 includes a subscription fee, what is the value of X? That's to say the price per carton. Was the answer $63? Was that it? Okay, that's what I just worked out. The screen flipped on. So, yeah, I flip over and show you guys why it should have been 63. Okay. So, I'll put a unit on this. $13.64 was paid. Now, 230 of those dollars went into the subscription fee, and everything else went into 18 cartridges. Okay. So what was the price per cartridge? Well, subtract over the 230, what's $13.64 minus 230? That's $11.34. Now, I should throw in the middle stuff. So $11.34 was actually paid for the 18 cartridges. So the 18 refers to number of cartridges, X refers to the price per cartridge. Okay. So divide by 18, and I'm getting $63 per cartridge. 63. Which of the following inequalities is equivalent to the inequality above? You guys notice that each of those three terms is divisible by 4. 16a over 4, that's like 4a. 20b over 4, that's like 5b. 12 over 4, that's like 3. There you go. Right, so just divide everything by 4. May of 1937, American aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart attempted to circumnavigate the globe. According to flight logs, the first stage of the trip was 110 miles less than the second stage of the trip, but the combined stages was 676 miles. How many miles was the first stage? Yeah, B, that's 283 miles. So the equation I set up, okay, looks like this. I said, here's the distance of the first stage, which that's what we're solving for. Okay. Now, they said it is 110 miles less than the second stage. Wouldn't that mean that the second stage is just the first stage plus 120? Right? So here's the first stage, here's the second stage, and if you add those up, it added up to this many miles, right? Okay. But you could just rearrange that a bit, drop the parentheses. So 2x plus 110 is 676. Okay. And then just solve the algebra. So subtract over 110, that looks like that, divide by 2, you get the answer, 283 miles. Okay. Just to show you guys that this does work. What if you take this 283, just pop it right there. So 283 plus 283 plus 110, right? So take this, go. I hope the answer is 676. It sure is. Yeah. Total weight of a carton of oranges is 27.3 pounds, but 9.6 of those pounds are just the carton itself. If a fruit vendor paid $46.25 for the carton of oranges, which the following is closest to the cost of oranges dollars per pound? Ooh, okay, so one winner. Yeah, so what I was thinking was, remember they said the carton of oranges was 27.3 pounds, but 9.6 of those pounds just refer to the box itself, the carton itself. So wouldn't the difference between the two represent the actual fruit weight, right? So the actual weight of the oranges. Okay, so there's the weight of the oranges right there. And the question is, what's the price per pound? And you were also told how many dollars were spent. So what do you do with the dollars? Well, I'm thinking put the dollars in the numerator, right? So dollars per pound. So it sets up the type fraction. You get the units that you want, dollars per pound. So this much money spent on this many pounds of actual oranges came out to $2.61 per pound. And then one last little detail, they said which answer is the closest. And the closest available, the closest possibility was $2.60. Okay, so 260 approximately. Board of directors at a natural history museum decided to survey all its scientists to determine if the new wing of the museum should feature an aquatic exhibit. The board met with a sample group of 30 marine biologists. The majority of that sample group were in favor of featuring an aquatic exhibit in the new wing. Which of the following is true about the board survey? A, the sample group should have included more marine biologists. B, It concludes that a majority of the scientists are, so the majority of the scientists are in favor of an aquatic exhibit in the new wing. Option C, the sample group is biased because it is not representative of all scientists. Or D, the sample group should have consisted of only scientists who are not marine biologists. Ooh, okay, a couple of you guys got that. Yeah, so the premise is we're trying to figure out among all scientists, is there support for the this aquarium, what was called aquarium, right? But do you guys notice that they only surveyed marine biologists, which is not all scientists, right? So that is called a selection bias. Yeah, so it's a statistical idea. Yes, so the answer was they should have surveyed more types of scientists, not just marine biologists, right, who would probably be in favor of something like an aquarium. Okay, so we got cats and dogs that are either brown or black. Okay, guys, let me just jump down to the question. So on that table, of the cats that were adopted, what fraction were black? Walk you guys through the answer here. So when it says of the cats adopted, that means you only look at the cats. So do you guys see that there were 16 total cats? Right? And it says, okay, what fraction were black cats? So I see 7 of those, right? So if you guys see 7 divided by the total of 16, and that's the answer. The answer is 7 over 16. Right? 7 black cats out of 16 total cats. Right? Guess what that? Tell you what, yeah, I'll walk you guys through this one. Right, so I know it's printed really small. So we got Arctic sea ice as a function of time. Right, we're looking at different years passing by. See how Arctic sea ice kind of bobs up and down, but there's an overall downward trend. Right, so here in tiny print, it says there's an equation for the ice is equal to C minus dt, where C represents like the initial amount of ice, that's like the y-intercept. And t represents how much time has passed. So C minus dt, well, wouldn't d represent the rate of ice lost per year, right? C minus dt, the starting amount minus loss per year times the amount of time, right? And the question is, what does d represent? And the answer is going to be option B, because option B says how much ice was lost per year. So just pick B for that one. Everybody pick B. Yay. There's a couple other questions about this. Let's at least look at these. So same graph, this question, the rate of decrease year 7 to year 10 is nearly constant. That's true. They're talking about this segment right here, year 7 to year 10. So it's pretty constant downward trend. Okay. On this interval, which of the following best models well, what's an equation for the amount of ice starting from the beginning of the study? So the trick for this one is, well, you have to get 2 things, the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope, rise over run, you have to estimate that and see which would correspond to one of these slopes. But then you have to extrapolate backwards and say, if you extrapolate this backwards, doesn't have an intercept around plus 10, I think. Right? So what would be consistent with that? Try option C, I think looks pretty close because it has an intercept of about 10, but it has a slope of negative 0.64. That looks also pretty close to the rise over run. Okay, yeah, that was the answer they're looking for. That was kind of tricky, but to see something like that, that's kind of what they're going for. Okay. Right, and there's one more about this Arctic ice. Over which time period does the average decrease Okay, so which time period has the greatest drop? Okay. So year 40 year, sorry, year 40, year 5. Look at that huge drop. Actually, it looks like probably going to be the answer, right? That's the biggest drop right there. All these other years are like here to here, here to here, here to here. There's little drops. So choose option A, just tell you guys, because it has the biggest drop. All right, moving on. System of equations. The solution is CD. What is the value of C plus D? All right, so I almost got to the answer myself, so please finish this over here, and I probably need to tag a little bit more time to that one. Okay, so they gave you the setup. Okay, so system of equations. Now you have to, one way to interpret this is if you graph those two lines, you could graph those two lines, right? Like on a CD set of axes, like X, Y. Okay. There would be one place where they cross, and the place where they cross, there's a coordinate. And there's a C value of that coordinate and a D value of that coordinate, right? Kind of like X and Y values of a coordinate. Okay. So what is that coordinate? Okay, but jump back to the equation algebra. So one way to solve this is using a process called elimination. You also could have done substitution. That would have been perfectly fine. But I like elimination because it's set up to solve from the outset. See the 5D and the negative 5D? That's just begging to cancel out if you add these two equations together. And that's what elimination is. Usually what happens is they will have different coefficients, like positive 5D, sorry, positive 10D versus negative 5D. And I say, well, if I double the second equation and add those together, then it would cancel out. But this is already set to do that. So I add together, I get 16C is equal to 32, divide both sides by 16. So C is equal to 2. Okay? Now, once you know C, you can just substitute that into either expression to get D. So for example, if I pull that top one, if I plug in 2 right here, 9 times 2 is 18, plus 5D is 22. Subtract 18 over, 5D is equal to 4, divide by 5, coefficient 5, D is equal to 4/5. Okay? But the actual question is, what is C plus D? So that's the last part you got to do. What is C plus D? Okay. So that's 2 plus 4/5. Right? And all the answers were as fractions. So maybe like an improper fraction. So I have to get a common denominator. Hey, 2, is that the same thing as 10/5? So 10/5 plus 4/5, isn't that like 14/5? That should have been the answer. Was that the answer? 14/5? Yes, sir. That looks like a pretty popular type question. I bet you guys gotta get a question like that, where you have to solve the coordinate C and D, and then either add the coordinates together or add C and D together, like we did here, possibly multiply them together. For some version of like some last operation you have to do like that. Ooh, I like this question. Triangle WXY is shown. Which of the following is equal to the ratio WZ over WX? So this tiny bit here divided by this bit. All right, somebody figured it out. let's switch over and you guys what's going on here. So one thing I would say is that, hey, the two angles that I gave you here, those add up to what? 90 degrees. Do you guys see that? Ah, that means that this big triangle is a what kind of triangle? A right triangle, because here's the other 90 degrees, so that you get 180 degrees total. So this is a right angle up here, isn't it? Okay. And that's a critical detail. The fact that that's a right angle, and this is a right angle, this is a right angle, and there's some smaller triangles inside that also share some common angles. Ooh, does that mean that this angle right here is 28 degrees and this angle is 62 degrees? It sure does, right? Remember back to geometry. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that there are three similar triangles. The large triangle, this tiny triangle on the left, and this medium-sized triangle on the right. Similar triangles. That means they're proportioned the same, right? You can blow them up and shrink them, and they're like same proportions. Okay. And the question was, if you take this side divided by this side, what ratio is equivalent to that? There's actually two correct answers, but one of them was not an option, so you just go with the other one, right? So what are the two correct possible answers? Well, do you guys see that on the tiny triangle, we're looking at the short side compared to the hypotenuse? You guys see that, right? Short side compared to hypotenuse. Okay. So I bet if you identify any triangle and you do the same ratio, it's the same proportion, right? For example, the large triangle, do you guys see that this WX is going to be the short leg and WY is going to be the hypotenuse of the large triangle? That's actually one of the answers. You could have done this divided by this, okay? But that was not an option, right? It just wasn't a possibility. So how about this medium-sized triangle? Isn't this the short leg of the triangle, XZ, and the hypotenuse is XY? So the short leg divided by hypotenuse, XZ divided by XY, and that was a possible choice. So that's the answer. Okay. Guys see that? And so proportions, similar triangles. Look for that next week. Table of fractions. Which of the following equations relates t to s? So st is like xy values. Right? So relates y to x, basically. For the values in the table above. I'll walk you guys through this because I know it's really small print anyway. Do you guys see this middle row right here? It says the point 0, 31/2. That's a really good hint point because that's some kind of y-intercept, right? Here's what I do is shop through these answers one by one because and see what eliminates just based on that point. Do you guys see option B that says 6s t equals 6s plus 31/2? Well, if you plug in 0 for s there, it just becomes 31/2, which is consistent with that. In fact, that's the only option that that does that is option B. So it's saying like a straight line relationship. Now, some of these other options are different kinds of relationships, like power relationship, like geometric types. But yeah, the answer ended up being a straight line. So once you think you have the answer, it might be a good idea to check by plugging in another point, but that would have worked. Yeah. But yeah, just based on that y-intercept alone, you could narrow it down to the correct answer. Okay. Tell you what, sort of like this question, but that is really tiny print. Actually, it's a 3-part question, so they're all really tiny. So what we're going to do is just close out this Kahoot, and I'll finish off class with some straight out of the book. Right. So see how you guys did with the bronze, Israel, with the silver, Jules, and the gold, Bella, and runners up, Jacob and Neil. Nice job. So switch back over here and go on old style textbook. Okay. I'm going to flip back to, you guys know we just did a bunch of section 4 questions. You're allowed to use a calculator. So just for context, I'm going back to section 3, which is no calculator, but do some of these. Okay, number 1, which of the following is equal to m to the power of 5 over 2. What do you guys think? How many guys like option A? Option A. Yeah, so do I. I like option A also. Okay. So when you see like a fraction power like this, like 5/2 for the power, remember the numerator, well, if it was 5 over 1, it would just be n to the 5, right? Okay. So the numerator is kind of like the actual power. But the denominator of the power is like a root. So in this case, a root of 2, hey, it's like a square root, right? That's why the answer is A. Okay. Oh, what is here? You guys follow what I just said. What is 25 to the power of 1/2? Yeah, just square root. Yeah. What is 27 to the power of 1/3? Yeah, because 3 times 3 times 3 brings you back to 27. Right? It should do something else. What is 64 to the 1/3? Yeah, because 4 times 4 times 4 brings you back to 64. Okay? So cube root of 64 is 4. Number 2, a seal coating company will seal. Pause here for a moment. The question I'm about to read, you guys have seen once or twice before already. Once you read so many of these questions, you start to see like patterns, right? So okay, I've seen this type of question before, so definitely look for something like this on the real exam next week. A seal company will seal D driveways, same size and shape, in a subdivision using a specific type of sealant. The company's fee can be calculated by the expression D times C times L times W. D is number of driveways, C is a constant with units of dollars per square meter, L is the length of each driveway, and W is the width of each driveway. If Homeowners Association asks the company to use a less expensive type of sealant, maybe they're on a budget, like I can't quite afford this, to use a less expensive type, which of the following factors in that expression would change? What do you guys say? You guys say capital C, which is like dollars per square meter? That would make sense, right? Because the other things don't change. Number 3, if 4x is equal to 20, what is 12x minus 4? Yeah, you guys like C? Okay. So a couple ways. You could solve for x and then plug it in. So x looks like 5, 12 times 5 is 60, minus 4 is 56. Or if you like, here's maybe a little shortcut. Do you guys see that 12x is 3 times the 4x? So 3 times 20 is 60, then minus 4 is also 56. Different perspectives. All right, this one, I'm gonna need to break out some paper. I'm gonna solve it, you guys solve it, see if we get the same thing. 2 over z equals 8 over z plus 42. And then what is z over 2? You guys got an answer? Here we go. Okay, so there might be a couple of different approaches you could do, so I'll show you what I did. Okay. Here's the original setup. Okay. I'm thinking I'm going to do I'm going to solve for z, and then I'll worry about the actual question, which is z over 2 later. But let's solve for z. First thing I did was cross multiply. This multiply up here, this multiply up here. Okay, can that be true? And wouldn't that give you a line that looks something like this? Like 2 times z plus 42 equals 8 times z. Okay. Then you have to distribute. So distribute those 2. It applies to both the z and the 42. Okay. So that's 2z plus 84 is equal to 8z. Right? Subtract 2z over, it gives you 6z is equal to 84. divide both sides by 6. So z itself is 14, right? Now they did offer an option for 14, but that's that's them being evil, right? Because that's not the answer. They don't want z, they want z over 2. So you have to do one less thing. Divide by 2, and that should bring you to 7. That's good. Let's do let's do this. It's got a word problem. Kind of think some problems look kind of interesting. The number of scripted shows produced for streaming services 2012-2013 is triple the number of services from 2009 to 2010. If 24 scripted shows were produced 2012-2013 and S shows were produced 2009-2010, which of the following equations is true? How many guys like option A? Option A? I think that's the answer, right? Right? Because wouldn't S have to be equal to 8? Right? So 24 shows were produced 2012-2013, right? And S between 2009 and 2010. But wait, where's the triple? Okay. Yeah. The new number of shows is triple the number of the old shows, right? So S has to be 8. I like option A. Should be A, right? Double check the answer. One I get like backwards thinking. So this is section 3, number 6. Section 3, number 6. Yeah, the answer is A. Number let's skip around a little bit. Here's a good one. Here's a good one. Number 9. The function p is defined by a polynomial. Right. So you get this xy table. Now, a polynomial that might be a parabola, that might be a cubic, that might be x to the 5th plus blah, blah, blah. Some values of x and p of x are shown in the table. Which of the following must be a factor of p of x? You guys have seen at least one question like this already too. You guys remember how to solve this one? A factor? There's one row in the table that you can get the answer from. A factor, isn't that like can tell you something about an x-intercept? Which row tells you x-intercept? It's like this row right here, the coordinate 1, 0. So if x is 1, y is equal to 0, right? Okay. So I think the answer has to be A. This is number 9. Number 9, yeah, number 9 is A. Let me draw this one out for you guys, because I know we did one like this recently. So if you were taking notes then, you look back at your notes too. This is like, I'll make up something. Y equals, say, x plus 7 times x plus 5 times x minus 1. Okay. Notice I included in there what the answer is to this question. Right? X minus 1 was the answer, right? Okay. Now, if you multiply this all out, do some crazy foiling and blah, blah, would you get like some form of a cubit, like x cubed plus blah, 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 right? Which is one form that you could have written this in. Okay. But maybe this is like the factored form, right? Because it's in terms of things that are multiplied together, like factored form. Okay. So, where did it go? Try to straight lines here. So x plus 7, that means that there's back here at -7 is a 0, x plus 5 is like here's -5. Because if you plug in -7 or if you plug in -5, see how that would zero out that, so the whole thing goes to 0. Okay. And also, if x is +1, if you plug in +1, this goes to 0, so the whole thing goes to 0. Okay, you guys see that? Okay. So the actual polynomial probably looks something kind of like this. Right? Okay. And then in factored form. Okay, so going back to the table of values they gave you one coordinate that is an x intercept. And so that means that you can very quickly pick out one of its factors. Okay. Yes, sir. So when you guys see that question next week, you go. All right. Well, Bill's about ring, so let's call that a pause point right there.